We all know The Simpsons famously predicted Donald Trump's presidency, but what if the most shocking part of that prophecy is still to come? For decades, the show has had this uncanny habit of foretelling the future. But what if it wasn't just random luck? What if, woven into the fabric of the show, there's a hidden pattern, a timeline of clues that all point to a pivotal event in 2026? This isn't about one single gag. It's about connecting the dots you've never noticed, revealing a potential future hidden in plain sight. How does a cartoon, a satire running for over 30 years, manage to call major world events with such eerie accuracy? It's a question that has launched 1,000 conspiracy theories, but the answer might be simpler and way more unsettling. The show's writers aren't psychics. They're masters of cultural observation. They take the trends and anxieties of today and follow them to their most logical and often absurd conclusions. But what happens when those absurd conclusions become our reality? A lot of these clues, these little narrative breadcrumbs scattered across hundreds of episodes, seem to circle around one specific year, 2026. This isn't about a single gotcha prediction. It's about a pattern, a web of storylines that, when you look at them together, paint a detailed picture of political chaos, economic trouble, and global change. And right at the center of that picture, once again, is Donald Trump. We're going to explore how The Simpsons' long history of predictions isn't just a collection of lucky guesses, but a kind of secret map pointing straight toward 2026. To see where the show might be pointing, we first have to understand its track record. The Simpsons isn't just a comedy anymore. It's become a cultural barometer, a satirical mirror that has, time and again, reflected the future with chilling precision. The show's whole reputation for prophecy is built on a foundation of jokes that turned into headlines. The most famous one, of course, is the presidency of Donald Trump. Back in 2000, the episode Bart to the Future showed us a grown-up Lisa Simpson in the Oval Office. In a scene that's now legendary, she tells her staff, "As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump." At the time, the idea was so ridiculous it was the perfect punchline. The show's creator, Matt Groening, said Trump was the most absurd placeholder joke name they could imagine. Writer Dan Greeny even called it a warning to America. They showed a nation dealing with the financial fallout of a Trump term, a nation that was, as Secretary Milhouse put it, broke. Then, 16 years later, the joke wasn't funny anymore. It was real. But the predictions don't stop there. The show's weird foresight pops up everywhere. Years before we had smartwatches on our wrists, The Simpsons had them. A 1998 episode had a quick gag showing the 20th Century Fox logo with a division of Walt Disney Company written underneath it, long before that deal was ever a thought. They've foreshadowed faulty voting machines and even the details of Lady Gaga's Super Bowl halftime show. They even correctly guessed a Nobel Prize winner 6 years before it happened. Now, you could write off any one of these as a coincidence, a lucky guess. But when you start lining them up, a different picture emerges. This isn't magic. It's about sharp insight. The Simpsons writers' room is full of brilliant people, many from top universities, who spend their days breaking down and satirizing our world. They spot the currents in our society, the political division, the rush of new technology, the cultural shifts, and they ride those currents into the future. They see the path we're on and just show us where it leads. That's the key to their prophetic power. And it's this exact method that creates the patterns we see pointing to 2026. They've established their credibility, so now we have to ask, where do the breadcrumbs lead next? The secret to seeing the Simpsons' vision for 2026 isn't in one big, obvious prophecy. It's in the small stuff, the background jokes, the throwaway lines, and the recurring themes that stitch the whole series together. These are the breadcrumbs, the subtle hints that, when you piece them together, start to form a surprisingly consistent picture. This isn't about a crystal ball, it's about connecting the dots that have been there all along. The show has always used Springfield as a stand-in for the entire country, especially when it comes to money problems. In the episode, The Trouble with Trillions, Mr. Burns tries to steal a $1 trillion bill that was printed to help rebuild Europe after World War II. It's a wild story, but it's all about massive government debt, a joke that feels a lot more real today. More recently, the 2022 episode, Poorhouse Rock, had a whole musical number about the death of the middle class and corporate greed, featuring former Labor Secretary Robert Reich. A janitor, voiced by Hugh Jackman, literally tells Bart that his father Homer's stable, single-income life is a fantasy now. These aren't just one-off gags, they're a running commentary on deep economic anxieties that are still building. Politically, the show has never stopped poking at our crumbling institutions. The 1994 episode, Sideshow Bob Roberts, is a perfect satire of a broken political system. In it, a right-wing talk show host helps a convicted felon win the mayoral election using voter fraud. It's a direct shot at media bias and corruption that feels like it could have been written yesterday. Then there's Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington, where Lisa's faith in democracy is completely crushed when she sees a congressman taking a bribe. These episodes, made decades apart, tell a consistent story. American democracy is fragile. This theme sets the stage for a period of major turmoil. Even the show's Treehouse of Horror Halloween specials add to the pattern. They often take our biggest fears and blow them up into wild allegories. In one classic segment, the 1996 presidential candidates are replaced by the aliens Kang and Kodos. When Homer exposes them, Kang just shrugs and says, "It makes no difference which one of us you vote for. Either way, your planet is doomed." It's a cynical joke, but it perfectly captures the feeling of voter apathy and the lack of real choice in a two-party system, a feeling that's only gotten stronger. When you put these threads together, the warnings about economic trouble, the satire of political decay, and the allegories about social fears, a focal point starts to take shape. The show isn't predicting one single event in 2026. It's suggesting a year where all these long simmering issues could finally boil over, especially against the volatile backdrop of a potential second term for Donald Trump. By looking at these recurring themes, we can pull out a few key ideas. These aren't just separate jokes, they connect to form a speculative picture of what 2026 could look like, particularly with the political dynamic of a Trump second term in the background. The most famous prediction tied to Trump's presidency was the economic chaos that followed. The Bart to the Future episode wasn't just about him being president. It was about the financial mess he left behind. President Lisa inherits a country that's broke and needs bailouts from places like China. This theme of debt and bad money management is a constant drumbeat. In The Trouble with Trillions, we see the absurdity of national debt as a single bill. In Poorhouse Rock, the show tackles the hollowing out of the middle class head-on. If you connect these threads to 2026, the pattern suggests a period of intense economic strain, a potential second Trump term, with promises of huge tax cuts and tariffs, could spark serious market volatility. The show's narrative implies these policies might just worsen the budget crunch Lisa warned us about, leading to higher inflation and a national debt that shakes the whole world. The Simpsons has always found humor in making fun of international relations, but underneath the jokes, there's a sharp commentary on how fragile diplomacy is. In one Treehouse of Horror segment, a bad joke from Mayor Quimby about the French escalates until Springfield gets hit with a neutron bomb. It's absurd, but it shows how fast things can fall apart. The show has also touched on United States-China relations, with Lisa's future government being deep in debt to Beijing. These plot lines paint a picture of a rocky international scene. A second Trump term would likely continue an America-first foreign policy, which could strain old alliances and lead to unpredictable standoffs. The show's pattern suggests 2026 could be a year where these shifting alliances are tested, and where trade wars or diplomatic mistakes could escalate quickly, just like in the cartoon world. From evil smart homes to robot workers, The Simpsons has always been both fascinated and terrified by new technology. The episode Them Robot shows Mr. Burns replacing all his human workers with machines, only for the robots to rebel. That story perfectly mirrors today's fears about AI taking millions of jobs. Holidays of Future Past gives us a peek into a future where people talk through holograms and live on a virtual ultranet, basically predicting the metaverse. The show's running commentary on technology points toward a future where AI isn't just a novelty, but a powerful and maybe uncontrollable force in our lives. With an administration that has emphasized deregulation, the push for AI could speed up without many ethical rules. The show warns that this unchecked tech could lead to new forms of social control and a world where human labor isn't valued, just like what happened at Mr. Burns's plant. The show loves to poke at the weak spots in our democracy. Sideshow Bob Roberts laid out how to steal an election, while Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington showed how money corrupts politics. A 1996 episode even featured a cartoon bill sitting on the Capitol steps, sad that it will never become a law because of political gridlock. That image of a paralyzed government has become incredibly real. A potential second Trump presidency is expected to bring major tests of executive power. The pattern in The Simpsons suggests 2026 could be a year where these pressures hit a breaking point, where the fairness of elections, the balance of power, and the rule of law become central conflicts playing out in public, like a Springfield town hall meeting spiraling into a riot. So how do they do it? Is the writer's room full of time travelers? The real answer isn't magic, but it's arguably more impressive. The show's predictive power isn't about seeing the future, it's about deeply understanding the present. First, the writers are incredibly sharp. The staff has always been full of graduates from places like Harvard, many coming from the Harvard Lampoon. These aren't just joke writers. They are analysts with a deep knowledge of history, politics, and culture. Their job is to find social trends, figure out where they're heading, and then blow them up to a satirical extreme. They take what's happening now and ask, if this keeps going, where will we be in 10 or 20 years? That process, called cultural extrapolation, is the engine of their foresight. Second, satire gives them an advantage. Satire works by exposing truth through exaggeration. By creating absurd situations, the writers can explore the consequences of our actions without being tied to reality. When they joked about a President Trump bankrupting the country, they were making fun of celebrity culture mixing with politics. The joke worked because it felt plausible, even if it sounded insane. As the writer of that episode said, the idea was a warning to America. They weren't predicting an event. They were diagnosing a condition. Finally, their biggest asset is time. After more than 3 decades on air, The Simpsons has become a living record of our era. They've thrown thousands of jokes at the wall, so it's only natural that some would stick. But it's the specificity of their hits that's so stunning. This happens because the show is a cultural sponge, constantly absorbing and reinterpreting the world. The writers aren't just observing society, they're living in it, reading the same news and feeling the same anxieties as us. They just have a platform to turn those observations into a story. The show doesn't have a crystal ball. It has a mirror, and it's been holding that mirror up for so long that we're now starting to see our own future in its reflection. Let's be clear. What follows is not a prophecy. It's a thought experiment. If we take these patterns and the show's method of cultural satire seriously, what kind of speculative picture can we build of 2026 under a potential second Trump term? The economic landscape, as foreshadowed by the show, appears fraught with peril. The budget crunch Lisa inherited could manifest as a collision of aggressive tax cuts, trade wars, and soaring national debt. The show's repeated focus on financial crises suggests a year where economic instability is a dominant reality, potentially triggering a global recession. Real-world proposals like $2,000 tariff dividend checks echo the show's satirical take on simple fixes for complex problems, hinting at a period of populist economic policies with unpredictable results. On the world stage, the patterns point to diplomatic volatility. In 2026, we could see the United States navigating complex relationships where transactional diplomacy leads to unexpected new alliances and heightened tensions, particularly with powers like China, just as Lisa's administration found itself financially dependent on them. Technologically, the year 2026 could be a tipping point. The show's vision of widespread automation and AI, once science fiction, is quickly becoming our reality. In the context of a government that prioritizes deregulation, the use of these technologies could accelerate dramatically. This raises the very questions The Simpsons has been asking for years. What happens to society when human workers become obsolete? And what are the dangers of trusting complex, autonomous systems? Culturally and politically, the institutional stress depicted in the show could intensify. The year 2026 is a midterm election year, and it could become a flashpoint for battles over election integrity and constitutional norms. The show's long-running commentary on media manipulation and a divided public suggests a landscape where truth itself is up for debate, and democratic processes are under immense strain. The Simpsons isn't telling us this future is guaranteed. It's showing us a possible outcome, a warning delivered as a joke. The secret pattern for 2026 is a convergence of all the anxieties the show has explored for a generation. It's a vision of a world grappling with the consequences of its own actions, a future that, as the show has so often reminded us, is closer than we think. For over 30 years, The Simpsons has done more than just make us laugh. It's served as a cultural archive of our hopes, our fears, and our increasingly weird reality. The patterns we've explored today, all pointing toward 2026, may not be a roadmap written in stone, but they are a powerful reflection of the path we're on. They force us to ask hard questions about our economy, our politics, and the future we're all building together. The show's writers hold up a mirror, and sometimes the reflection is a warning. Maybe the real prediction isn't about what will happen in 2026, but the realization that we have the power to see these patterns for ourselves and maybe, just maybe, choose a different path. What do you think? Are there other clues in The Simpsons that you believe point to the future? Share your theories and favorite episodes in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this investigation, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It really helps the channel out. Thanks for watching.
This book is your beginner's guide to understanding Scripture. Find peace, build relationships, and discover purpose in today's world. Ready to decode the Bible? Find Bible Decoded available on Amazon now.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.